Welcome, Julia. Nice to see you as well.
Okay.
Honored to meet
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Yes, I'm glad to meet you.
Very good to meet you. Yes, we are waiting a short moment until we get the go sign from the main organizers, so that we know that everybody who comes from the main room has found a nice breakout session.
Okay.
I think we have the sign. We can start.
Yes, we have to go.
Yeah.
We have to go sign. Okay, thank you very much for being here and joining us in this breakout session. We hope that you have had already a very nice morning session in the introduction about the pillars. I would give and especially welcome our guest speakers or panelists of today. These are Alexander Schultz, he is from Vienna or Wien. Julia van Katrieva, if I pronounce it well, you are from Brussels. And then we have Tom Ryan, he is from Ålesund in Norway. And always welcome to Katarina Schulberg, because she is the master of this meeting and responsible for sharing the screen and helping us with the Mentimeter. So that is the most important person in this meeting. Welcome to all of you. Also, I see a very large audience. Welcome to you as well. We have almost 71 up and counting, because this is such an interesting meeting, of course. Most welcome to you as well. Today, or in this meeting, we will focus on one of the pillars of the new Driving Urban Transition Partnerships, and that is the 15 minutes city. Katrina, could you forward, please? The idea is here that today or this afternoon I will give some background on the 15-minute city concept, and especially I would share some insights for the public consultation, the stakeholder dialogues, and the focus group workshops, and together with you, and so hopefully using the Mentimeter and the discussion with our panelists, we also like to discuss some major questions and dilemmas of this 15-minute city concept, also in interaction with the other pillars, and also in the view of the current COVID-19 challenges. So I think this could be a very nice meeting, and I hope and looking forward to your active participation. Next, please. As Jonas Billund already introduced, I think the 15-minute city concept is one of the three pillars of the proposal of the Driving Urban Transition Partnership. All the pillars are about sustainable development and getting a better future for the citizens, and also an inclusive and sustainable society. But the challenges are quite difficult and too much to take it up in one integral way, and therefore we have defined three pillars, but those pillars will be very much interacting with each other. And you can imagine very well that if you are talking about positive energy districts in neighborhoods, you have also to talk about the energy that is needed for transportation, for example. And if you are talking about downsizing district donuts, so the responsible economy, so to say, that has also impact on the city, and therefore also impact on the city, on the transportation. So this is fully integrated, and we are looking for integrated solutions as well. But in this pillar, we focus now on the urban sustainable mobility. Next, please. In the partnership setup, we have identified 4 different perspectives that we will take to look into the different challenges we face in driving these urban transitions. And these 4 perspectives include the digital transitions and urban governance. The second one is the challenge of going from resilience to urban robustness. The third one is sustainable land use and urban infrastructures and their interconnections. And the fourth one is inclusive public spaces. So we want to see those perspectives and cross them with the different pillars, and so get a good overview of the interactions of all those activities and transitions that take place in those different topics. And I will use those colors to indicate also a little bit where we are, but it is only to give a impression. Yeah. The next, please. Now, what about this 15 minutes city? Of course, it is not something that we have to achieve, but it is only an idea to start thinking about how sustainable and inclusive mobility in a city could work. So the idea is to have an urban mobility, accessibility, and connectivity that is sustainable and responsible, and we all know that this play a central role in sustainability challenges, because moving around costs a lot of energy, produces at the moment a lot of local and other emissions, and there are also issues with space utilization and safety. So it is in the middle of the urban challenges. On the other hand, living in cities is also good, yes, and a lot of people are working there, living, I hope, happy lives, and we very much like to continue that. So we want to support sustainable and attractive urban areas by making a very attractive mobility system. By doing that, we have to find a right mix of spatial proximity, so that is related to the spatial organization, the digital connectivity, and an effective physical mobility, so the actual movement of passengers and cargo. And this mix is also introduced by Glenn Lyons from Bristol University, and he calls this the triple axis system. Also, we have to find a balance between efficiency, so the economic efficiency of a city, but also the attractiveness. So the city must be nice to live, must be inclusive for people. So we have to balance that also in our mobility challenges. We have also to protect the rights of individual citizens, for example, privacy, the freedom of movement. And that is not self-explaining, because at the moment, also in COVID times, we ask a lot of information about people. We more or less try to control their behavior, and we have to be careful about that, because in our world, in our European society, the individual rights of people are very important. So we have to seek solutions in urban mobility that respect these freedoms and this privacy. And last but certainly not least, of course, we have to safeguard the reliability of mobility, because we are very dependent of the mobility systems, but also the inclusive accessibility. So not only the accessibility for the happy few, so to say, but also for those people who are disabled or less well off in economic or societal sense. So I think these are quite important challenges that we have to tackle. Can I have the next one, please? Now, the idea is that we will use the Mentimeter interaction tool, and the idea is that you power up menti.com if you did not do that already. And if you do that, you will be asked to enter a code. And if you put the code 301041, you will be able to enter answers in your Menti poll. And we would suggest you use a mobile phone, because that works best. So the code again, 301041. And I think, if we start, so if you are putting answers in this Menti now, we can see those answers from you. And in the meantime, I like to ask for our panelists, can you reflect already a little bit on this? So what are you in ideas and first associations when talking about a 15-minute city? Maybe Julia, I can start with you. Do you have any ideas already? Did you say, this pops up in mind?
Hello. It's a so huge question.
Yeah.
Yes, it's so huge question, and so I think one thing, we need to understand that it's mobility is a product of a lot of things, and so now we have a lot of approach for that, and we have also a lot of plans and some papers for attention for that. For example, we can say that we fixed something. 15-minute city, it's one of direction for the strategical plan. And so this plan now, I think 2 years will been approved. And so now we need to find solution to implementation. And so we have a lot of approach. We put now some elements like, for example, we do in the same time research like for the open spaces, for the periphery, for the indicators, because we need also sometimes the count. What is it? The 15 minutes area. We need to understand how we can monitor do monitoring maybe after, and it's one of the things to do the research, to find solution, maybe some ideas for the implementation after. And at the same time, we try to do something like research by design for different topics and for different parts of the city. It's important to understand that we cannot say we need to do exactly this and for all city. No, because each part of the city have some local specification, but not only for the urban structure, but for the culture, for the different social and economical aspects. So we need to find solution for every part of the city, and it's important to understand how it works now, how what we can introduced to create this 15-minute city approach. And so we started to work, for example, for the solution with one of the part of the city, difficult part of the city, in the middle. It's dense. It's dense for the built area. It's dense for the population, and also if we need to understand that it's not so rich, and it's post-industrial area. If you can see just the streets and the buildings of this part of the area, it's of the beginning of the end of the 19th and 20th century. The structure is ready for the 15-minute city, because before it was a 15-minute city. It's not a problem to change it, but we need to introduce maybe some elements like a nature, because the city grows, and so now we have the it's not equal in the city. This possibility to just your question about the accessibility. For example, for the green area, this is how we can introduce it. And so we work now with workshop for this part of the city to try to find solution. Of course, it's just a start, because after we find we need to work. Yes. Okay, it's okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you very much. You gave already a lot of information. Yes, so thank you very much. So I think you mentioned already a lot of aspects that relate to the 15-minute cities, and I think you are right in saying that, especially in the city centers, we more or less have that already, but we have to be careful that we keep it that way, and also do research in how it works and how we can improve that better. Yeah? So we are not there yet. That is clear. I like to look to the input on the Menti screen, but so thank you very much for your inputs as well. We see a lot of words. You know how this works, and the bigger the word, the more people has entered that work. So we indeed see that accessibility, walkability, proximity, and cycling are very important aspects. Yeah, I think we recognize that very well. However, what we also see, and I think it is also very nice to see, that, for example, we see livability, convenience is a very important one, so it has to be attractive and easy to use, but also, for example, inclusiveness, having short distances, cycling space, etc. So a lot of ideas that already pop up in the audience and also in our panelists, I would say. Also, it's also nice to see some examples here. So Julia is from Brussels, of course, but I can also see here someone pointed to Barcelona as a nice example. And I saw also in Melbourne, for example, Australia, there we have some very interesting examples here. So thank you very much for this input. By the way, we will keep this input and we will share this input later on. So this is very valuable. If you don't mind, I'd like to go a little bit on. So please, yes, thank you very much. So some of the key aspects that came up in our earlier discussions in other formats is that it would be necessary to stimulate urban mobility planning to cater walking and cycling, yes, and to favor public transport innovation, as well as new mobility services. We come to that later on as well. Also, it's a good idea to have an inclusive and accessible planning for the urban environment and the integration of different systems and infrastructure, and to have an interaction with stakeholders. These were some of the ideas that came up in earlier discussions, and some of them we recognize also in your input. It's perhaps nice to go to the next Menti poll, and that is simply we would ask you to vote. And the idea is that what do you think would be a top priority in getting the 15-minute city reality? And the options to vote from are integrated spatial planning, the redesign of urban spaces, technological innovation, legislation and incentives, introducing city hubs, or the improving public transport. Of course, these are not all the potential options, but we have picked a few. So please cast your votes in the poll. You can choose an option. And please hit submit after you have cast your vote. And in the meantime, perhaps Alexander, can you give your idea? What do you feel would be a priority if you see those possibilities, or maybe something else? Yeah.
Yeah. Hello for having me. And that's a tricky question, because I think there are a lot of top priorities. But if I would choose from these 6 priorities, for me it would be the redesigning urban space and integrated spatial planning. I think the urban spaces, because for the 15-minute city, I think the urban space, the quality of urban space, there will be a lot of pressure on that, because I think we will need a sustainable and high population density to have this mixed city and 15-minute city work, and therefore we don't therefore the public spaces need to have a high quality to ensure that the mixed city will work and the 15-minute city will work.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you. I hear myself talking. I'm sorry. I think if we look to the Mentimeter results, and I think they agree with you, Alexander. Yes? So the top priorities here are indeed in integrated spatial planning and also in redesigning urban spaces. This is by the way, different if you look to different communities, because there are also communities where you see that technological innovation, they put a lot of trust in that, and other people say, "No, yeah, maybe also we have to rely on public transport, especially in a larger city." So I think, Alexander, what you said and what we learned also, there's a variety of priorities. You cannot do one without the other. I think we all agree about this. In the meantime, I'm also looking to the conversation, and I see a remark from Oleg Domko. No, I cannot pronounce this very good, but there the notion is 15 minutes is an utopia, especially for the largest metropoles. And we need transport planners modelers to talk about this. Now, happily, I happen to be a transport modeler, but that is not a nice answer, of course. But I think this is a good discussion, because in transport planning we know that there's a kind of very persistent use of the transport system, that people more or less are stable in spending some 40-45 minutes in a transportation system, and improving the system usually means that people tend to drive further. Yeah, so I don't think that it should be really a 15 minutes city, but it is more a way of thinking about how we can make a city more attractive, especially for the environmental friendly modes. But your remark will be certainly taken into consideration. The same goes for the remark of Alessandro Camis, where he says 50 minutes is 1 kilometer walking, but 10 kilometer driving. Which are we talking about? Yeah, that depends a little bit, indeed, on what we are talking, on what kind of transport modes we use. Yes? So,
if I
yes,
could
please.
add,
Yeah,
I think that's a very important discussion that we also had in our focus group. So what do we mean with 15-minute city? Is it because, like, for example, even in Austria, with public transport, within 15 minutes, you can cover quite a big distance. Also with bicycle, 15 minutes, you can cover quite a large area. So there was a big discussion about this, which means of transport, and but with the 15-minute city, I think it's the focus should be on the active mobility modes of transport. Yeah. And we saw it quite clearly also in the word cloud with the first Menti we had, that walkability was one of the biggest mentions you had. So I think the focus should be on the 15-minute city on the active mobility modes.
Yep, I think you are right. Yeah.
I can maybe add something. And also, I think there's also an important factor to take in, that all the cities in Europe are different. They are basically children of the early stages of industrialization. So they were created on the basis of a need, and the need is different in all those cities. So it's not necessary that the 2 points that are got the most votes here are correct for every city. You need to analyze the city. What do we need to do in my city to realize the 15-minute city goal? And for me, the 15-minute city means that I can access most of my needs during the week within 15 minutes of walking or bicycling. So I don't need to use the car, because a car in a city is a very capital intensive piece of equipment. So making a city based on that you don't need to use a car is also should help all layers of society, also those who don't have that much money to actually have a car. So that's what I think about the 15-minute city. So it's a city that rewards all levels of society to achieve their goals during a normal work week.
Yeah, no, I think this is a very good remark. By the way, this was also, I think, pointed to by Julia already. So that, of course, there is no single solution that fits all. Yes, we need to have research. What solution? Yeah, Julia?
Little things. I think for the priority, for me, maybe we need to think about the boundary, about the periphery, because in the middle we have some infrastructure to do it. But in the boundary and from the 20th century, where we have the development from auto for the individual auto. And so we need to think about maybe change it. And this is a very good question about the cycling for the all scale of the cycling, short distance, middle distance, and long distance. And so for me, it's important things, the thinking about the boundary in the first.
Yeah, I think so. Now, in the meantime, thank you very much for your contribution. In the meantime, the conversation is also a very nice discussion. And one of the points is, of course, and I think we indicated that already, there is no single solution for all the cities. Also for the very for the fact that we have quite different cities in Europe. If you're talking about in Istanbul, of course, we have quite a different situation than if we are talking to the city of Delft, where I am living. Yeah, so that is completely right, and we have to look for ways to solve the sustainability and inclusiveness challenges for those cities, and they can come up with their own ideas and their own solutions, of course. So the 15-minute city is only a source for inspiration, I would say. Katrina, maybe we go to the next slide, please. So thank you very much. So I want to go shortly about the earlier things we did to get inputs from you and from other people. So we did a public consultation that was essentially open for everybody who would be interested, and we got quite a lot of responses there. There was also a stakeholder dialogue in JPR terms that is called an agora. And in that stakeholder dialogue, there are, for example, cities and also some NGOs represented. And then we had some focus group discussions, in which I think Alexander and Tom also participated, maybe Julia as well, I'm not sure. So this we used to get a lot of background information and suggestions for our program. And of course, this program will develop further. Can I have the next slide, or the next slide, please? Because the input we have gotten so far and we are still gathering will be used to design the Driving Urban Transition multi-annual program. And that program consists especially of calls, of calls for activities to be started, and that eventually will result in project activities, all in close collaboration with the partners. So what we are doing now is not yet trying to find solutions, but more to get some inspiration for future research, for future projects that eventually will result in very concrete solutions as for specific cities and areas. So we are only at the start, we hope, for a very long and very interesting program. And that is what we are doing right now, what we are preparing right now. Okay, I'd like to go now to the next part of this meeting, and that means that we have 4 topics on which we will have, again, a Menti interaction. Those topics will be the public spaces, mobility solutions, urban spatial planning, and governance. I'm not sure if we can make all that, but we will have a try. And for all the topics, we have put some questions that will also be on Menti again. So regarding the public spaces, our question to you, to the audience, and also to our panelists is what are the largest challenges and the unknowns in creating attractive and multifunctional public spaces? That is the main question. In answering that question, you can also think about what we have learned about the challenges that COVID and the COVID measures pose, or what we see happening in the COVID period. So the question is, what are the largest challenges and unknowns in creating attractive and multifunctional public spaces, and this will also be put on the Mentimeter. It's here. Yeah, thank you. In the meantime, perhaps I could ask Tom, maybe can you give your idea here, what you want to what your view is on the largest challenges in creating multifunctional public spaces?
Yeah, well, just have to think. For us, we have on the west coast of Norway, we have some weather problems. So that's basically a bit of a challenge. How do you create a public space that is attractive in all forms of weather? And also, basically, for us, that is a very car-based city.
Yeah.
It's also, how do you make it attractive enough to maybe attract services to those public areas? Because if you want a public space to be attractive, you need to have services around it. We have a small square in the city. So basically nothing happened, and then suddenly we had a project there. We put up 4 food trucks, I think, and that made it much more attractive. So now there are benches, everything, and there's actually people there. So it's a bit of a challenge to basically make a good public space that is attractive, but also the services that is needed to keep the attraction up. I think when I discuss public space, I don't think about I see the Mentimeters is popping up here. That if it's a space for cars, it's not a public space in my opinion. Maybe the topic I'm least qualified to answer in this panel, but I think to have an attractive public space that realizes the recreational value for the citizen within is extremely important, and how you design them is also crucial. But at the same time, I think the big picture here is stakeholder participation, that you talk to the residents in the area of what do they need in the public space and what services do they need. I think is the big driver here. And also politicians. That's maybe not for this question, but maybe for a later question.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think this is an important contribution to the discussion, and we see also the discussion scrolling from the Mentimeter, and one of the suggestions was, and it was also raised in an earlier discussion, is yes, we have to rearrange public space and perhaps reduce the amount of space that cars take and replace that by really redesigning and taking space from cars. Although, of course, that is not in all the cities seems to be very easy, but still, this is interesting to look for. Of course, we have to balance costs and benefits of doing so, because urban space is also very expensive. So if you're looking to the funding and the financial aspects, city governments tend to use the public space to use it and to sell it, because it's an important income thing. So we should not forget that. Another remark is we have already too much space for buildings and not sufficient space for public at all. So we should give more attention to that. Also, we have to take into account different users and also take into account that a public space is also attractive. I saw it somewhere, not only during daytime, but still safe during nighttime, for example, which in some situations can be a problem. So we have to take that into account. Yes, please.
The one saying from an architect for the National Architects Association in Norway said that basically the public space is the city's garden. So in the urban sprawl where everybody had detached houses and their own separate gardens that they can relax in. That is maybe not possible in a 15-minute city. So the public space is basically the city's garden. So it's a very important factor that we really need to take into consideration.
Now maybe we have to think in a third dimension. Yeah. So to have and by the way, I think that especially bicycling can also be combined very nicely with a public space if we design it in the right way. I think. Yeah, but I think a lot of interesting inputs here. I'm looking to the inputs. At the moment there's prioritization of the private car in public spaces. I think that is right. That is the way it has grown, and we have to look for possibilities to get that back more or less. And here an important thing: getting local businesses, shops, bars, restaurants on board. So to help integrations with logistics, home delivery, return. It's a long contribution, but it's very important. Yes, so I think to get the private sector on board in these designs, we see that all over the place. If you manage to get private companies, restaurants, and activities in such public spaces, it often also becomes more attractive. So that is, I think, a very interesting contribution. Thank you very much for that. I'm looking here to the scrolling. I think we have the most inputs together. Of course, I cannot discuss everything, but I think it is. Thank you very much for this input. Then, Katrina, I think it would be nice to go to the next topic so that we can try to cover most of that. So then we go to the mobility solutions, more or less in the core of this pillar, of course. And there we want to ask from you, what do you think are the key issues regarding the potential role and contribution of existing and also new mobility solutions? So what are here the key issues that we have to put into our research and development program? And again, when answering the question, you could keep in mind the COVID challenges and also the experiences we have today. So the code again, Marie, was I have it here, 3010141. Hope that I could put it in a message as well, of course. Sorry for doing so. One moment, please. Thank you very much. So here we have some suggestions again. Alexander, can I go to you? By the way, Julia, I come to you later. But first, Alexander, perhaps can you give your first impression here? What do you think are key issues?
I think regarding to new mobility, I think shared mobility will be a big factor and can help us a lot. Also in regard to redistributing urban space, we know that a lot of cars are not used very often, and they just stand around on the street and use up a lot of space and not very efficiently. So I think shared mobility could be a big role in helping us redistributing urban space. Sorry, I'm not so good in English. And also, I think with new mobility solutions, we also should look into reducing the travel time, the length of your mobility needs. And regarding to COVID, I think home working will help us in reducing the overall mobility need. But I think we should also look much more into the rebound effects. So what we can see already in Vienna is that there is a trend in more ways done for leisure. So I can see a little bit of a backslash with that the way that you usually go to work will be used, the free time will be used to have a way to some leisure activities. And we can see that leisure activities are much harder to let's say, control or focus because they're much more dispersed. Often they're longer ways. They're more done with car. So there's going to be a new big challenge regarding to ways for leisure activities.
Yep. Yeah, I thank you very much, Alexander, for this valuable insight. So you say shared mobility can really help a lot also in a redistribution of urban space or public space. I think this is an interesting point of view, and I think this is something to discuss more later on. The other thing you mentioned that was also raised by Oleg, I think, in the conversation, that indeed, you can reduce travel time in some cases, but then you can see rebound effects. That is the term for that. Human behavior will change over time, and in some cases flip back to old customs. So to look for other opportunities to travel somewhere. This is, by the way, also what we see for quite a long time. I would say for decades already, in cities that were very bicycle and walking friendly. Then you can see that indeed in the cities itself, people walk and bike a little bit more, but then they go and drive the car a little bit more outside the cities. So that is essentially changing the problem a little bit. Yeah, but we have to take that into account. In the meantime, I'm looking to the Mentimeter results again. A lot of nice ideas. Julie asked, there's a lot of nice ideas in the Menti. Will these be made available? Yes, we will download those ideas and certainly circulate them and take them up in our discussion. Ole also said that COVID matters are very important. Yeah, what is your idea? What did we learn from COVID? Or can you say or type something about that? In the meantime, data sharing and evaluation also is a basis for data-driven planning. That is indeed very interesting. So you can use that data for planning as well. The question is also when mobility is needed. So homework and logistics, etc., can cut down the essential travel and enable more physical activity for leisure, which will require different infrastructures. Yeah? So it can also mean a change of the type of activities we do and a change of mobility patterns and also the change in infrastructures and travel modes we use, I would say. Public transportation could be sensitive to different issues, like women, unfortunately, are abused in public transportation. Yes, indeed. I think we have to be very much aware of that for specific groups in our society. Some of the mobility solutions are not so attractive because of vulnerability or harassment, but also not being able to use it. And for example, in COVID period, we can also see that there are also limitations to the use of public transport, and even in shared transport. Yeah? So this is also something to take into account, which is not easy to solve. Okay, and therefore, and we should always also look to individual but sustainable mobility, like bikes and electric transport. Yeah, I think it is very, very nice to see all your inputs. Okay, thank you. I'd like to go to the next question, but Katarina, I would ask you if we could skip one for the time being and go to the governance one, if it is possible. Thank you. And then if we have time left, we come to this later. Yeah. So first of all, I would ask your opinion about the importance of governance. So I think we have a lot of issues to solve, and now some of these issues relate to the regional dimension, because cities have a government, but you have to place it also in a region, or maybe in some countries even in a national level. So how to do that? How to include a good role for citizen participation, and also how to make sure that private enterprises play a role in this whole reaching a more sustainable mobility, and that is included here. because we see that a lot of shared mobility concepts now stem from private enterprises. It's not an initiative that is taken by government, but very often you see this kind of new transport mode. The initiative is taken by private enterprises. So please open the discussion. Again, type in your 3010141 code if you are not already in Mentimeter, and then you can put your comments here. And now I would like to go to Julia, because Julia, you are working, I think, in the Brussels region, if I understand it right. So perhaps you can give your view on this, on the importance of governance in tackling mobility issues.
Yes, I think it's important to say, okay, we said we have the plans and for the public administration, but I think it's very important to talk about the private enterprises, because it's today we said, okay, we move maybe not so much to the work because we're working from home, but we have now a lot of things to delivery. You know, it's interesting to work with the private society in this sense to reduce or change the movement for the delivery, because we have now the growing this part of the mobility. And I think in Brussels we have now the plans for to have, and we have the enterprises who use bicycles and different electrical things, and so we need to help maybe with the infrastructure, because in the periphery it's not so easy. In the middle of the city, okay, but in the periphery it's not so easy. But for the citizens, I think we have now very good communication, and people start to use very well the bicycles and different kind of the bicycle, private or it's renting. And for that, I think also we need to think about the infrastructure. And for me, this is point, it's a relation between public and private. We need to help now with infrastructure to enterprise.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thank you for this contribution. So you emphasized the need for interacting with private sector, not only when we talk about new mobility services, but for example also in home delivery of goods that has seen a steep rise in most European countries that were affected by COVID measures. So it is very attractive now, but yeah, that is also something to solve, and you are also talking about infrastructure. So I think this is indeed a very important issue. Thank you for this contribution. What I see in the Mentimeter, and you can see that also scrolling around, procurement processes and co-creations with residents, so that results are scalable. So this is regarding to the citizen participation, and also, by the way, collaboration with private partners, because procurement rules and collaboration between public and private partners is sometimes a little bit difficult, but still we need that. We thought about it, and therefore you need indeed new partnership models. I think you are completely right over there. Then we see a lot of opposing economic interests. Yeah, we should not look away from that, because if we want to make reduce the role of the car, for example, there are huge industries related to that, and yeah, we have to find solutions for that as well. And especially in some countries, this is really a big issue. So we have to be careful about that as well. There need to be a clear coordination from public sector to development, co-creation, and new partnership models. Yes, I think that is, you have to also to embed it in laws and regulation and spatial laws, etc. We are sure about that. Then we see here that citizen-centric is perhaps key, but still citizens are no experts, yes, even on their own. That's true. We see that everywhere, so it's important that their voice is heard, but we have to put that also in a good context. And another one is, of course, that the local interests and the personal interests of people can overshadow the bigger interest of a region. Yeah? And not in my backyard issue is quite famous, I would say, in public planning. Raise awareness about effects of mobility choices at all levels. Yeah, I think so. That is also important to take into account. Yeah, and then freedom. Yes, please.
For me, it's very striking. I can know, like, I saw their hard question, and before the other mentees, the answers were coming really fast, and here there was like a little bit slow, and really have to think about it. So I think there should be more focus on governance, how to enable citizens, and more participation. And we also can see sometimes that the citizens are even more brave or progressive than the administration and politicians. And I think we have to look more into that, how we can enable citizens and participate more in our administration and political processes.
Yeah, that is a very good, very good remark. Yeah?
The political processes are very important here because educating our citizens so they can demand from their politicians what they want for their city as a positive impact is important, because the most of the questions that regard this question is political. So remembering the political dimension here is, I think, is really important, and also the legislation, because in Norway we had in the big cities, especially Oslo, there was a private company that just popped up overnight and threw thousands of electric scooters around. And the municipality wanted to get rid of them, and then all the legal says, well, you can't get rid of them because there's no rules against it. And I don't think I'm not necessarily negative for electric scooters, because they are very good last mile mobility thing, but it needs to happen in the proper setting, because otherwise people just get angry and throw them in the river. That's happened in Oslo. So I think there's a combination here that the private enterprises are important for, like, shared vehicles, last mile mobility and such, but you also need the public governance in to make that happen in a form that is, what should I say, publicly acceptable.
Yeah, I think that is a very good remark. By the way, this is Gijske Bauma in the conversation box also agrees that the fact to the fact that the governance is really key. No one type of actor can progress this alone. I think that we can see that. On the other hand, I think what you said, Tom, that a lot of cities recognize that some of those shared bike companies spray out lots of bicycles or scooters or what you have in cities, and simply start going. And I think that the difference in speed of action between governments and legislation on the one hand, and some of the private entrepreneurs is also a challenge. Yeah? So sometimes it would perhaps be good if we could act a little bit faster in our political context, I would say. But it is my private opinion. I have to be careful, of course. And here, Alain. Hi, Alain. Nice that you are here as well from UERA, a very important partner of JPI Urban Europe in the partnership, by the way. But Alain raises the issue that vandalism is undermining the carbon dioxide impact of the public e-scooter. Yeah. Every scooter that is dropped into the water is a waste of material and carbon dioxide emission. You are completely right. So even if it is not such a big issue apparently from the economical point of view for the company, it is still a big issue. With this is also a kind of waste we have to take into account. Thank you very, very much for that. I see I have a big counter. You don't have that, I think, but I have a big counter below in the screen. And we left with one question. I think we have just some time to put that in the Mentimeter, Katarina. So maybe we can go back if that is possible. I don't know if that works well. Yeah, yes, that is this one. That is the last question I would ask from you. What are the main challenges in the urban planning mobility interaction? I think it would be nice if you can also give some responses here. So at the one hand, we have the urban planning on a higher scale than the urban places, I have to say. And the other side, we have the mobility. And what do you think are the main challenges and the not yet resolved issues there if we talk about that balance? So I'm very curious about your inputs here. And in the meantime, perhaps Alexander or Julia can give their view here.
You want to go?
Yeah, please. You can go.
Julia?
Oh, Julia, the microphone, Julia, is switched off, I think.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think it's two things. We need to be agile, understand which we need to do to adapt it, but we need to be strong at the same time because we need to have the guideline like slow mobility and to try to push it up. And so it's two things in the same time. To be agile, to understand what we need just now, but adapt to continue in the one direction, not one, maybe directions, but to stay strong. For me, that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Alexander, maybe?
Yeah, for me, the main challenge between urban planning and mobility is especially regarding to the 50-minute cities, to find the right density of population density, and to have this mixed use, land use, and population density. So yeah, I think like I saw a lot of the comments that the 50-minute city gonna be a small town. I think the 50-minute city should not be a small town. We need high density, polycentric approach, not a monocentric center where everybody wants to go. So more like different small, medium scale centers that are connected together. And yeah, I think that's the main challenge.
Yeah. Thank you for your ideas. Yeah, I think that is very interesting to look for that. I'm quickly scanning your inputs, but again, it will be saved and also distributed for the Menti. We are really have a very interactive audience. Very good. Thank you for that. Here, an entry is space competition and paradigms focusing still on individual mobility and not on the overall optimal use of space. Yes, so that is one of the challenges we have to face. Another thing is many issues press on urban planning and therefore the urban space, I would say. So how can mobility contribute to the societal goals, combining with, for instance, the energy transition, climate adaptation, health, social inclusion, etc.? Yes, that is one of the main challenges of our new driving urban transition partnership. Yes, so that is essentially something we have in common. Someone else said we have to have a right mix of long-term and short-term measures because we have to face very complex challenges and they have not one single solution. Yeah. Now, thank you very much. I see that we are running in overtime a little bit. So let's first thank you for all your great contributions. First of all, of course, to our panelists. Thank you, Julia, Alexander, and Tom. Thank you very much. Very grateful that you could contribute and be here, but also to all the other people in the audience. Thank you very much for your contribution. And then perhaps, Katarina, I could ask from you to switch to the latest slide where you see that's the same. So thank you very much. That is a There is a link that links to the concept board, and the concept board is another way of getting your inputs that is a little bit like the Mentimeter tool, so that you please go there. You can see a lot of inputs from other people as well and contribute it as well. So thank you very much for your participation. You will be automatically directed to the plenary meeting, so I have to say goodbye at this moment already. And then we will see each other in the main room. Thank you again for your contribution. Yes, yeah.